So before we even begin today's deep dive,
Hmm.
there is this very bizarre, completely non-negotiable condition for you, the listener. Like, to truly grasp what we're about to discuss today, you technically need to have a specific song playing in the background right now.
Oh, yeah, endlessly. Just on repeat.
Literally on loop.
Right, and the track is Ivy by the indie pop band Sales.
Yes.
If you really want the authentic, intended experience of the material we are unpacking today, you need to imagine those mellow, lo-fi guitar riffs just, looping in your head for the entirety of our conversation.
It just perfectly sets the atmospheric tone for what we're getting into, because today we're immersing ourselves in an introductory excerpt from this wildly unique, totally rule-breaking text. It's titled The Unperfect Logic of Ivy and the Smartened Soul.
Which is quite the title.
It really is. And it features this character named Nanocapacti the Talker, Ivy. So our mission today is to unpack a story that doubles as two very different, almost contradictory things.
Yeah, on the surface, it's this strange, heavily engineered utopian narrative about a best friend named Ivy, right?
But then right beneath that surface, it serves as a meta-commentary on how standard, rigid English grammar might actually be a cage. Like a cage that severely restricts human creativity and thought.
It is a remarkable dual exercise. I mean, we are looking at a text that intentionally utilizes structural messiness, or what is actually described in the source as unperfect logic.
Unperfect logic.
And the underlying argument is that this deliberate chaos forces us to engage our brains in a much deeper, more critical way than, perfectly polished robotic writing ever could. It basically suggests that the way we are forced to format our thoughts by societal rules is actively restricting the boundaries of those thoughts.
Okay, I want to stop right there and just push back on this premise immediately, because I really struggled with it during my initial read.
Oh, for sure. It's jarring.
It is. The text explicitly states it was written in a soft yet lazy mood, and it deliberately rejects the hassle of perfect grammar English in favor of using messy yet funky words.
Messy yet funky words.
Right. But my immediate reaction was, wait, isn't grammar exactly what allows us to communicate complex, high-level thoughts? Like, if I'm trying to learn something dense or read a manual, I don't want funky words.
Right, you want clarity.
I want precision.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the line between creative freedom and just total miscommunication?
I mean, it's a completely valid skepticism. We are taught that grammar is the load-bearing architecture of intellect.
Exactly.
If you pull out a pillar, the whole building of meaning just collapses. But what this text demonstrates is that language is far more elastic than we give it credit for.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you stay entirely inside the rigid little box of what society dictates as proper, you actually limit your capacity to synthesize new types of ideas. Perfect grammar is often binary, it's black and white. It functions beautifully for an instruction manual, as you mentioned. But when you're trying to convey the actual lived human experience, that robotic perfection kind of strips away the color and texture of the thought itself.
There is a really fascinating analogy used in the text to defend this style, and it honestly helped me bridge that gap in my own understanding.
Oh, the boxer's analogy.
Yes. It describes this specific way of writing as being kind of like wearing boxers backwards, but they're not opposite because they still fit and work.
I love that. It's an incredibly vivid, almost disorienting image, but it captures the mechanics perfectly.
Right, like you put them on backward, and your immediate instinct is, wait, this is structurally incorrect.
Yeah, I've made a mistake.
But then you take a few steps and realize they still function. They're still achieving their primary goal. The text refers to this phenomenon as the unperfect but understandableness of the communication.
Which brings up a really profound philosophical question for you, the reader. If there is a purely objective right way to write, why is your brain still perfectly capable of extracting meaning from these messy, unperfect sentences?
That's a great point.
The text argues that standard grammar might be efficient, but efficiency breeds passivity. Like, when you read a perfectly constructed sentence, you just consume it passively. It slides right down without touching the sides of your brain.
Because there's no friction.
Exactly. But when you encounter these messy yet funky words, your brain is basically forced to wake up.
Right, you have to work for it.
Yeah, you can't just consume it. You have to actively construct the meaning alongside the narrative. The text literally states that this style makes you want to logic more. You become an active participant in the deciphering process.
Using logic as an active verb right there is just so interesting.
It really is.
It shifts the burden of understanding from the structure of the sentence onto the cognitive effort of the reader. And if we look at how that structural rebellion plays out, it doesn't just stop at the grammar.
Not at all.
The erasure of rigid linguistic rules directly mirrors the erasure of rigid societal rules within the fictional world itself. Like, the text points out that real life is annoying, unconnected, lonely, and complicated.
Which honestly is pretty accurate.
Right, so the reality design for these characters is engineered to be the exact antithesis of that. It's a world built entirely on beautiful, creative, and happiness.
And that structural parallel is where the brilliance of the piece really lies. The environment is just as soft, modular, and uniquely structured as the sentences used to describe it.
Yeah.
We experience this through the perspective of what is cheekily referred to as the sort of main character. And we are introduced to their best friend, Ivy, in a reality where the baseline of human interaction has been, well, radically altered.
And the most glaring alteration being that the characters in this world are literally programmed to not hate.
Which is a heavy concept delivered with remarkable casualness in the text. The premise established is that nobody wants someone who is mean, so those negative traits have simply been designed completely out of the human experience. Everyone is different, but simultaneously very much alike.
With the ultimate expectation that they just exist happily without hurting anybody.
Exactly.
And on a surface level, that sounds like a deeply comforting utopia. I mean, even scenarios that typically trigger our self-preservation instincts are totally neutralized.
Right, like the old man example.
Yes. The text uses the example of an old man walking up to you. In our complicated real world, you might naturally be on guard a little bit.
Sure.
But in this reality, old men aren't scary in the slightest. They're viewed simply as elders and teachers existing clean and clear in their mind after a happy life.
It represents the complete eradication of social friction. The default state of existence is safety, clarity, and unending contentment. But it is vital to examine how that safety is maintained. Utopias are never self-sustaining without a mechanism.
And this is exactly where the narrative completely lost its cozy veneer for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because right after establishing this soft, hate-free environment, a detail is dropped that completely shifts the genre from utopian fantasy to psychological horror.
The systemic regulation of behavior.
Yes. The text notes that despite being programmed not to hate, some people still sometimes go bad.
Right.
And the solution for this is terrifyingly mundane. It casually mentions that when this happens, you see people having to call to get them fixed. To not be evil.
It's chilling.
If I'm having a bad day or feel a surge of genuine anger, someone essentially makes a customer service call and my brain gets reprogrammed.
It is the ultimate utopian paradox. You cannot possess guaranteed universal harmlessness without an underlying apparatus of absolute draconian control.
Exactly.
What's really fascinating is that the text is highly self-aware of this tension. It doesn't present the fixing as a purely benevolent act without consequences.
No, it definitely doesn't.
There is a deeply unsettling observation made where this societal structure is described as being imprisoned into our own happiness.
Imprisoned into our own happiness.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like the thesis statement of the entire world-building exercise.
It really does.
Like, if you're listening to this right now, think about the last time you felt a complex, messy emotion, like deep grief or profound anger.
Yeah.
Now imagine living in a society where experiencing that emotion is treated as a mechanical failure and you are promptly reported and extracted to have it erased.
It reframes the entire concept of joy. While no one is a literal prisoner behind iron bars, they are captive to the mandate of happiness.
Right.
As human beings, our fundamental drive is to seek happiness. But when that drive is institutionally enforced, when a system fixes you the moment you deviate into sadness, frustration, or what they classify as evil, happiness stops being a genuine emotional response.
It just becomes a baseline.
Yes, a mandatory artificial baseline. The beautiful creativity of this world comes at the ultimate cost of emotional autonomy.
It's essentially what we were discussing with the grammar, but applied to the human soul.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's like this society operates on perfect emotional grammar, and any messy, funky feelings are immediately edited out by an aggressive emotional spell check.
That is a phenomenal way to connect the two concepts. The text champions messy, unperfect grammar in its prose because it creates friction and requires active thought.
Yeah.
Yet the world it constructs enforces a terrifying emotional perfection where friction is straight up illegal. It highlights how vital our annoying, unconnected, lonely, and complicated feelings actually are to our humanity.
And that erasure of friction doesn't just apply to how they process sentences or emotions. It extends to their literal physical existence in ways that are just dropped into the narrative with almost comedic apathy.
The modular anatomy is perhaps the most surreal element of the entire text.
I honestly had to reread this section 3 times to make sure I was processing it correctly.
Same here.
While discussing how old men are just clear-minded and harmless, the text casually throws in, the story doesn't tell you how they do it, or how nobody has private parts and that they can just put the parts on.
Just put them on.
And it just moves on. It literally acknowledges its own absurdity by adding, but the story keeps moving, and that's also what makes it awesome and exciting.
It's so funny, but also wild.
The people in this world are operating their physical bodies like Mr. Potato Head, just swapping out anatomy as needed.
As bizarre as it sounds, we really have to look at the underlying mechanics of why this physical reality exists alongside the emotional reality.
Okay, yeah.
What does it mean for a human being to lack physical permanence? Embodiment, the reality of being stuck in a specific vulnerable physical form is one of the primary drivers of human struggle and empathy.
Right, 'cause we get hurt. We feel physical pain.
Exactly. So if you can simply snap parts on and off, you completely alienate the characters from the traditional human experience of physical vulnerability.
There are just no stakes.
Done.
If you get hurt, you get fixed. If your mood goes bad, you get reprogrammed. If you want a different physical attribute, you just snap it on. Nothing requires deep struggle, commitment, or resilience.
Precisely. And this total lack of friction, this engineered weightlessness of consequence, directly sets up the ultimate tragic realization regarding this sort of main character.
All right, so amidst all this modular, frictionless living, we learn something very distinct about our protagonist.
Yeah, the intellectual shift.
Exactly. In a world where everyone has heavily programmed, likable traits, the text explicitly notes that these people aren't the smartest. But through the internal monologue and conversations, we start to realize that this specific main character is actually evolving. They're actively getting smarter.
And in any standard dystopian narrative, think Fahrenheit 451 or 1984, this intellectual awakening would be the inciting incident for a massive structural revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
The protagonist gains forbidden knowledge, realizes the horror of their condition, and challenges the oppressive system.
Exactly. You anticipate that the system is going to view this growing intelligence as a massive threat. You expect the authorities to swoop in and try to fix the main character for getting too smart.
Right, that's the trope.
But the societal reaction here is infinitely more chilling than violent suppression. It is absolute crushing apathy.
The text delivers the blow so quietly, too. It says, nobody cares. It's not a big deal anymore. Being smart is just okay. Even if it's just our main character that's actually getting smarter.
Nobody cares.
Nobody.
The society doesn't feel threatened by intelligence. They are just deeply bored by it. I really struggle to wrap my head around this. Like, why wouldn't a society that can engineer happiness in modular body parts care about intellectual growth?
Well, we have to connect this back to the core mechanics of why human beings pursue intelligence in the first place. We strive to be smart, we strive to master complex grammar, and we try to understand difficult concepts because our reality is, to quote the text again, annoying, unconnected, lonely, and complicated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Intelligence is essentially the tool we evolved to navigate hardship.
So if you remove the hardship, you remove the need for the tool.
Exactly. If you live in a reality where you are literally programmed to be happy, where your emotional deviations are fixed with a quick phone call, and your physical body requires no permanence, what possible use is an elevated intellect?
It's totally redundant.
Right. Intelligence is a mechanism for problem solving. But in a world completely devoid of problems, being smart is a vestigial trait. It serves absolutely no function.
It's like having an incredibly sophisticated compass in a world where you are never allowed to leave a single, perfectly temperature-controlled room. It's entirely useless.
That is the quiet devastation of the narrative right there. The tragedy isn't that society destroys the sort of main character for thinking too deeply. The tragedy is that society simply shrugs at them.
Wow.
The ultimate endpoint of this mandatory, friction-free happiness is the total eradication of curiosity. They acknowledge that being smart is just okay because being highly intelligent doesn't make you any happier than the person who just got reprogrammed by a mechanic.
The result is exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
This brings the entire concept of the unperfect logic full circle in such a brilliant way. Like, the text starts by arguing that we need messy, funky grammar. because without it, we stop actively thinking. We just passively consume perfect sentences.
Right.
And then it shows us a society that has achieved perfect, frictionless living, and the result is exactly what the grammar argument warned us about: total cognitive passivity. Without the messiness, the intellect literally dies from sheer lack of use.
It proves that we actually require the friction. We need the unperfectness. We need the complicated, lonely realities to give our intelligence a reason to exist.
So let's pull all of this together for the listener, because this has been an incredibly dense conceptual journey.
It really has.
We started with a rebellion against the rigid architecture of perfect English grammar, discovering that embracing messy, unperfect words forces the brain to actively construct meaning rather than passively absorbing it.
And from that structural friction, we transitioned into an exploration of a world completely devoid of it. We unpacked a meticulously engineered reality where negative emotions are outlawed and physical bodies are treated as modular, interchangeable parts.
And crucially, we uncovered the psychological horror lurking beneath that mandated pleasantness. We explored the terrifying paradox of being imprisoned into our own happiness, where emotional regulation acts as an aggressive spell check on the human soul.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we arrived at the chilling realization that in a world without struggle or friction, gaining true intelligence isn't a revolutionary act. It's just met with a collective, apathetic shrug because intellect has outlived its usefulness.
It is a lot to process, especially while imagining a mellow indie track looping endlessly in the background.
Seriously, don't forget the looping track.
But it forces us to confront the value of our own daily struggles. Which leads me to a final thought experiment. I'd really like to leave you, the listener, to mull over on your own time.
Lay it on us.
We've spent this time dissecting the terror of being imprisoned in happiness and the apathy toward intellect that follows. So imagine you were genuinely offered a one-way ticket into this soft world.
Okay.
All of your annoying, complicated, and lonely feelings, the grief, the anxiety, the heartbreak, would be permanently programmed away. You would never have to experience deep emotional pain again, and if you did, a simple phone call would fix it.
The ultimate escape from the human condition.
Exactly. But as we've established today, this escape comes with an absolute condition. Accepting this reality means sacrificing your drive to become smarter, to grow intellectually, or to ever push the boundaries of your own mind, simply because society wouldn't care and you wouldn't need to.
Yeah.
The struggle to articulate yourself perfectly, the messy, painful journey of learning and evolving through hardship, all of it gone, replaced by a comfortable, effortless, backward boxer's kind of existence.
It is an incredibly heavy proposition when you truly weigh what is being lost against what is being gained.
It really is. So listener, as you sit with that premise, and as you hear that endless loop of the song Ivy finally begin to fade out in your mind,
Which it hopefully is.
yeah, ask yourself,
Yeah.
would you take the deal?